Tonight on NewsWatch, online security, from cyber hacking to identity theft, how to protect yourself from becoming a victim.
Plus, fighting Islamic extremism in Mali. As France prepares to leave the area, we'll look at what comes next.
And a crash course in economics using the greatest textbook ever written, the Bible. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. There's a rise in cyber attacks in America. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Lori Johnson. The brazen attacks are coming from the world's largest country, China. A newly released report details China's involvement in dozens of hackings. Now the White House says there will be consequences. George Thomas has the details in tonight's top story.
Away from the glitzy, tall skyscrapers that symbolize downtown Shanghai sits this nondescript building on the outskirts of the city. Inside what's being called Unit 6139, the Chinese government has an army of English-speaking hackers allegedly stealing America's corporate secrets and breaking into military sites.
This is an espionage operation run by the Chinese People's Liberation Army, and it's targeting a broad swath of Western organizations.
Among their targets, critical infrastructures, including water treatment plants, transportation, and our food supply. But security experts are most concerned about vulnerabilities to the power grid.
Because we've got 18 critical infrastructures in the United States, water, food, sewage, etc. All 17 of the others depend on electricity. So if the grid is taken down by electromagnetic pulse or by anything, you're not back in the 1970s pre-web. You're back in the 1870s pre-electricity.
Also on the list, Lockheed Martin, maker of the F-35 jet fighters, and numerous corporate giants like Coca-Cola.
There's no question about it that cyber warfare, cyber attacks, cyber theft are absolutely the future.
Hours after the study's release, China called the accusations groundless.
China firmly opposes cyber attacks and enacted laws and regulations to severely punish hacking attacks.
Still, the study reveals some 140 U.S. companies have been on the Chinese hit list since 2006.
The Chinese are not going to let this level of hacking and cyber espionage to go on without them controlling it.
Fearing the attacks will only get worse, the White House announced new measures today, including fines and other trade sanctions against China or any other country that engages in cyber espionage.
We have repeatedly raised our concerns at the highest levels about cyber theft with senior Chinese officials, including in the military, and we will continue to do so.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Identity theft is on the rise again. A study by Javelin Strategy and Research found over 12 million Americans were victimized last year alone. That translates into slightly more than 1 in 20 consumers. The increase is attributed to a jump in more serious forms of ID theft, like new account fraud. It's the second highest total since the Federal Trade Commission started keeping track. A record 13.9 million victims was set in 2009. Joining us now is Tim Newberry of White Canvas Group, a technology incubation firm. Tim, how vulnerable is America to a big cyber attack, and what could that mean for the country?
Well, Mark, first, thanks for having me on today. I think that we all are starting to get comfortable that we are indeed vulnerable. Anything we see in the news in the last 48 hours is telling us that fact, as evidenced by the Mandiant report on the Chinese hacking and espionage, as well as the recent Java exploits exposed at both Facebook and Apple.
Now, what would you say is the goal of most hackers?
Oh, that's a great open-ended question. And I think that the first thing to understand is that being a hacker is a wide spectrum of things. Some people do it just for fun, as if they're playing board games at home. And some people do it all the way from state-level, state-sponsored for really sophisticated espionage and stealing reasons. So I think it's a wide range.
So the U.S. as a whole, how vulnerable are we, would you say?
Well, I think focusing on what we've learned in the past couple of days and really the Mandiant report again, I think a critical point for us to consider is that now this is going to become a very normal public conversation. So hopefully we can start to talk about solutions. But specifically to your vulnerability question, a big shift in what types of targets are being exploited by these supposed hackers, and in this case allegedly Chinese backed, is that we're no longer just going after intellectual property and trade secrets and state secrets, but now we're starting to focus on companies directly related to our critical infrastructure, meaning our electrical power grid, our water resources, our gas lines. That's a fundamental shift in the end state of what these hackers are trying to get access to.
And on a smaller scale, we just reported ID theft is on the rise. How can people protect themselves online?
I think that both of those things are really, really related to one another. I think it doesn't take a strong storyteller to explain that identity theft really is the gateway into everybody's credentials and what everybody's doing online nowadays. So this big exploit that is related to our power companies and our industry, that could start with somebody's identity being stolen from a simple Hotmail password or Gmail password. And I think that people just need to understand that this is a pretty serious problem. It's not going away. And to take more accountability and understanding of the way they're interacting with these information systems.
All right, Tim Newberry, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Mark.
The parents of a Texas teen have backed down after trying to pressure her to have an abortion. The 16-year-old is 10 weeks pregnant. The girl filed suit against her parents for their alleged attempts to force her to abort her unborn child. She also claims her parents threatened her with physical force if she didn't go through with the abortion. The girl and her 16-year-old boyfriend say they never considered terminating the pregnancy. Their attorneys say this is a major victory in the fight against abortion.
Right now it's a victory for life, and we're glad that they stood up for the right to life, and that they recognized, our client recognized, that her unborn child had a right to live and she wanted to protect that.
The parents have also given consent for their daughter to marry her boyfriend and father of the baby.
Turning overseas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has added a surprise member to his new coalition government. Tzipi Livni, a politician who's known as a dove in Israel. Netanyahu is considered a hawk. Livni will serve as the justice minister, and she'll be in charge of peace efforts with the Palestinians. Livni led the last significant round of peace talks 4 years ago, and she's been a fierce critic of Netanyahu, but he promises to make a serious attempt to reach a peace agreement with the Palestinians.
France's defense minister says his troops will start pulling out of Mali within weeks. That's despite new clashes and difficulties in rooting out armed extremists in the West African country. Extremists connected to al-Qaeda took control of northern Mali last year. France sent troops in January to help Malian forces retake the north to prevent the region from becoming a haven for terrorists. And for more on this, we're joined by senior international correspondent Gary Lane, who's just now back from Mali. And
Yes.
Gary, we understand that according to the French government, the African troops aren't really ready to take over this area yet. So why is France pulling out?
Well, I think because the French know that they really can't afford a prolonged war in Mali. Their economy isn't going well. If you pay attention to that, you know that their unemployment rate's about 10%. Maybe 27% among young people. Their economy's barely growing. They have a high tax rate. Many wealthy have left the country because of that. They can't afford a prolonged war there. And I think they also believe that the United Nations peacekeepers will start coming into the country probably as early as next month, maybe about 6,000 of them.
And they've been there for 6 weeks now, and they've really, you got to hand it to them, they've done a great job of rooting out these extremists. They have very heavy artillery, and it looks to me like the people of Mali are very grateful to them.
Yeah, most of them are grateful, but I don't think it's been as successful as you're reading in the media, because last week when I was there, just in the city of Gao, it seemed like they had an insurgency starting there. Guerrillas that had come out of the populace that started fighting some of the Malian army troops. Some IEDs and that type of thing. Now, it's calmed down a bit this week, but who knows what will happen.
So when France leaves, are you suggesting that perhaps these extremists might rise up once again and perhaps even overflow into other African countries or even into Europe?
Well, it's possible, and there are people in the Malian army, some officers who privately are saying, we can't beat these guys. So they themselves know they need help. So will it be enough to have 3,800 West African troops there, 6,000 peacekeepers, and the Malian army? Will they be able to do the job? We'll have to wait and see on that.
Do you know how much longer France might stay there to try and finish the job?
Early spring, I think once you see the UN peacekeepers coming in, they'll leave, but they're looking for elections coming up in July also.
Plus, you hate to put a date on these types of things, too.
Yeah, it just depends on how stable things become there.
All right, Gary Lane, thanks again for your insight.
Coming up, how culture's changing views on marriage could be hurting the church.
Listen up for an amazing offer that can change the way you hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Frustrated with your hearing?
What did he say?
Well, hear better now. Introducing the fully rechargeable MSA 30X, a revolutionary device that features the latest microsound amplification technology that can barely be seen. Independently tested to help you hear up to 30 times better. It turns ordinary hearing into extraordinary hearing. MSA 30X works by capturing and amplifying sound waves, yet its lightweight ergoacoustic design is discreet. It form-fits in and around either ear.
I forget I'm even wearing it.
And MSA 30X is powerful. Hear clearly in restaurants. Never miss another word on TV or at the movies.
My wife complains that I have the volume up on the TV too loud.
And I didn't want to be in the same room with them.
Now I can hear everything clearly.
Simply adjust the volume as you desire. Other units use so many batteries and they're difficult to change. But the MSA 30X is completely rechargeable. Simply plug it into the wall.
I tried other devices that had batteries, but they were always such a pain to change and so costly. But this is rechargeable, so I figure I save hundreds a year.
Bulky sound amplifiers can cost hundreds, but try MSA 30X for just $59.95 and we'll include a cleaning brush and 5 comfort tips. But wait, in this special TV offer, we'll cut the price in half. Now you can hear up to 30 times better for just $29.95. But there's even more. We'll double the offer free. Just pay additional processing and handling. Wear them both or give one to a loved one. Did you hear that? That's 2 MSA 30Xs for just $29.95. The MSA 30X Hear Better Now offer. Get 2 for just $29.95.
All I can say is just try it. It could change your life.
To order the MSA 30X sound amplifier, call 1-800-535-0654. That's 1-800-535-0654. Or you can go to MSA30X.com. Call or go online now.
2 courts in Europe ruled in favor of homosexuals seeking to adopt children. In Germany, the High Court ruled that one member in a civil partnership can adopt their partner's stepchild or adopted child. Gay couples are not allowed to marry in Germany, but are recognized in civil unions. However, they still are not allowed to adopt children as a couple. In another case, the European Court of Human Rights overruled an Austrian court which forbid a lesbian to adopt her partner's son. Christopher West is a Christian author who writes about what's called the theology of the body, the idea that men and women are shaped to come together in marriage.
That idea is meant to reflect the love between Christ and the church. West recently talked with Paul Strand about how promoting same-sex marriages could keep a culture from seeing the truth about Christ's marriage to his church.
Is this one of the big problems with same-sex marriage, is the fact that it misses this whole angle of male and female and what God is saying through it?
Our bodies tell a story of Holy Communion. A man's body doesn't make sense by itself. A woman's body doesn't make sense by itself. But in light of each other, we see the unmistakable design of the Creator, that we are meant for one another as male and female, a call to life-giving Holy Communion. That's the story that our bodies tell. But we don't see this story when you have 2 men's bodies. We don't see the story when you have 2 women's bodies. This story is only revealed in the glory and beauty and mystery of the sexual difference. That's where we see the call to holy, life-giving communion.
In order to give people their rights, their freedoms, etc., we legalize it and make this sort of the new thing of our country, that everybody can marry anybody they want, etc. What do we risk? What does our culture risk? What might we lose?
If, as Paul says, the one flesh union, that call to holy communion of man and woman, is a great mystery that reveals the love of Christ in the church, then what we're losing, what we're risking, is when we don't live the sexual difference rightly that calls men and women to communion, What is ultimately at stake is we are not going to see the call to Holy Communion with Christ, because the union of man and woman reveals the mystery of Christ and the church. Perhaps there's an enemy at work here. Put it this way, if the union of man and woman really is the revelation of Christ's love for the church, then it would make sense that an enemy would want to attack the union of man and woman precisely to prevent us from entering the union of Christ and the church. And that, I believe, is why Ephesians chapter 5 is followed by Ephesians chapter 6, which is a call to take up the armor in the spiritual battle. And the first piece of armor that Paul says we have to put on to win the spiritual battle, he says we must gird our loins with the truth, because it is the truth that will set us free. This is precisely what is at stake, the mystery of Christ's love for the church.
I think people might say, Americans especially these days might say, well, you're interfering with my freedom. You're trying to, you're trying to cut down on what I am free to do. Can you tell me why freedom isn't, the difference between freedom and license?
Our culture talks a big line about freedom, especially sexual freedom, right? But the culture means by that, do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, without ever saying no. Well, put it this way. If an alcoholic cannot say no to his next drink, is he free or is he in chains? I think if we take a deeper look, Paul, at what our culture promotes as sexual freedom, we'll actually see it's promoting sexual addiction. You see, freedom is not the liberty to indulge your compulsions. True freedom is freedom from the compulsion to indulge. Only then can we become a true gift to one another. See, the great mystery of our sexuality, according to the Bible, is this. We are called to love as Jesus loves. This is the summary of the whole gospel. And what we learn in Scripture is that call to love as Jesus loves is literally inscribed in our bodies. The truth that sets us free is precisely the truth that we're made in the image and likeness of God as male and female. Freedom isn't do whatever you want. Only those are free who see what is true, good, and beautiful and desire it with all their hearts. And so we're back to this idea that freedom comes from directing our desires according to God's design so we can reach our destiny.
Thank you so much, Christopher West, author of Fill These Hearts.
Up next, how the Bible can provide economic tips for everybody.
Listen up for an amazing offer that can change the way you hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
Frustrated with your hearing?
What did he say?
Well, hear better now. Introducing the fully rechargeable MSA 30X, a revolutionary device that features the latest microsound amplification technology that can barely be seen. Independently tested to help you hear up to 30 times better. It turns ordinary hearing into extraordinary hearing. MSA 30X works by capturing and amplifying sound waves, yet its lightweight ergoacoustic design is discreet. It form-fits in and around either ear.
I forget I'm even wearing it.
And MSA 30X is powerful. Hear clearly in restaurants. Never miss another word on TV or at the movies.
My wife complains that I have the volume up on the TV too loud.
And I didn't want to be in the same room with them.
Now I can hear everything clearly.
Simply adjust the volume as you desire. Other units use so many batteries and they're difficult to change. But the MSA 30X is completely rechargeable. Simply plug it into the wall.
I tried other devices that had batteries, but they were always such a pain to change and so costly. But this is rechargeable, so I figure I save hundreds a year.
Bulky sound amplifiers can cost hundreds, but try MSA 30X for just $59.95 and we'll include a cleaning brush and 5 comfort tips. But wait, in this special TV offer, we'll cut the price in half. Now you can hear up to 30 times better for just $29.95. But there's even more. We'll double the offer free. Just pay additional processing and handling. Wear them both or give one to a loved one. Did you hear that? That's 2 MSA 30Xs for just $29.95. The MSA 30X Hear Better Now offer. Get Get 2 for just $29.95.
All I can say is just try it. It could change your life.
To order the MSA 30X sound amplifier, call 1-800-535-0654. That's 1-800-535-0654. Or you can go to MSA30X.com. Call or go online now.
Detroit is in a financial emergency, and it's now the Michigan governor's job to fix it. A state review team has determined the Motor City has no satisfactory plan to resolve a serious financial problem. It's basically been living on borrowed funds for the past 8 years, and Governor Rick Snyder now has 30 days to decide if an emergency manager should take charge of its finances.
Obviously, the cash condition that the city finds itself in has been a strain on the city. If you look, the city's been running deficits really every year since 2005, and they've been masking over those in a way with some long-term borrowings.
Some financial experts believe bankruptcy may be the city's only remedy, but the state treasurer says he's confident other answers can be found if the city and state work together.
Legendary football coach Vince Lombardi used a simple but compelling way to stress the fundamentals of the game. He would hold up a football and tell his players, "Men, this is a football." Lee Webb talked to a Christian author and teacher who believes it's time to do the same with economics. Return to the basics.
When we're left arguing about whether or not we should have a marginal tax rate of 45% or 48%, and the conservative is stuck arguing for the 45%, we've had an insufficient reformation in our thinking.
R.C. Sproul Jr. believes that reformation will happen only when we return to Scripture to see what God has to say about economics. That's why he's produced this video series called Economics for Everybody. It's a compelling, even entertaining approach to a topic many find boring. Sproul admits the Bible is not an economics textbook, but he maintains it does say plenty about the subject, and he begins with the beginning.
The first and most basic economic principle that we really need to grasp is simply this: God owns everything.
That's because he created everything, and he gave man the responsibility to take care of it, much like a foreman does for a landowner. Even after the fall, the creation mandate remains in effect to be fruitful, multiply, and take dominion of the earth. Sproul examines two competing worldviews, Christianity and the atheistic worldview expressed in Darwin's theory of evolution. Both views have a profound influence on economics.
In the Darwinian perspective, stuff just happens. It just appears. And if stuff just appears, then that means wealth just appears. And if it does, it certainly makes a whole lot more sense to say, well, let's just divide it. Let's just make it equal. If, however, how much is produced is related to how much I work, then all of a sudden property rights become clear. And again, they're central to so much of what God has to say about economics.
A culture that embraces a Christian worldview also embraces God's law. Sproul maintains each of the 10 Commandments contains fundamental economic principles, not just the one on stealing.
How about honor thy father and mother? How is that an economic principle?
God says about this commandment, if you keep this commandment, it will go well for you in the land. It recognizes that wealth is cumulative in a family. It builds on the principle of consuming less than we produce. I hate to sound like the president, but we didn't build this. Our fathers did, and our grandfathers did, and our great-grandfathers did. And we need to be grateful to them. We need to honor them by protecting those things.
Sproul provides historical evidence that nations most influenced by biblical Christianity are nations that, by and large, have prospered. Nations marked by decentralized governments and free markets. Nations rejecting God are marked by centralized power, tyranny, and no free markets. But he observes some of those troubling trends in America now.
The United States is not a free market. It's an interventionist economy that's been moving closer to socialism for over a century now.
Do you hold out much hope for our economic future in this country?
We live in a country in which the state forbids me to hire a man unless I promise to pay him X number of dollars. We now live in a country where I can't hire 50 men unless I promise to buy them all health insurance, including access to abortion. This is not economic liberty. This is not free markets. We're missing the fact that we're the frog and the water's boiling.
That's why Sproul believes it's not enough to think conservatively, we must think biblically. And he cautions Christians to avoid despair. One way to do that, he says, is by returning to the beginning, to the creation mandate, and begin to see that our work is part of our worship.
What we do here and now, with that motivation, I am fully persuaded will last into the new heavens and the new earth. If we can have the perspective that we're working for the kingdom and we're working for Jesus, and that our work is a sacrifice to him, we end up richly rewarded.
Lee Webb, CBN News.
Up next, car enthusiasts get the first glimpse at the fully self-operating car by Lexus.
When you're driving along and your cell phone rings, do your eyes instantly go off the road? Then you need to get a grip. Hi, David Jones here with the new GripGo, the most versatile hands-free mount that will instantly grip any phone for safe driving. Just attach the suction cup to your windshield or dash, and GripGo grabs your phone ultra fast. Then it peels right off. And don't worry, there's no sticky residue left behind. The 360-degree pivoting mount allows you to always get the perfect viewing angle. It's even strong enough to grab and hold this expensive smartphone out the window. Yet it comes right off with ease. That's the advantage of GripGo. You can get the amazing GripGo with dashboard mount for only $14.95. We'll send you a second kit free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Get 2 complete GripGo systems for just $14.95.
To order GripGo for $14.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-709-5259 or order online at getgripgo.com.
John Mapes is 42. Mortgage, married, 2 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. John can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $25 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll search the pick of insurers like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. John's wife, Carrie, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or visit SelectQuote.com.
Ah, well, you knew it was just a matter of time.
Yeah, but a self-driving car finally made its debut in the Lone Star State. The Google Lexus Hybrid was revealed at the Texas Transportation Forum in Austin. It has a spinning laser that maps out roads and identifies hazards like other cars, pedestrians, and streetlights. The car then creates a 3D mapping system that it uses to guide itself. Technology like this is still in the research and development phase, but researchers hope that it could be seen on the road within the next 5 years. And Lori, that's quick.
That is quick, and it's a little frightening to me,
It
too.
is.
I don't know if I trust that car.
I don't want the car turning on me.
Although
you know?
airplanes have autopilot, so why not cars?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Probably a lot of kinks to still work out, though.
That's all the time we have for this edition of NewsWatch.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great night.